Hi, I'm Dave, and in this quick tips video I'll show you how you can extend the battery life of your Steam Deck. Now there are two main power draws in a device like this. That's the display and the processor. So let's start with the display. Turning down the brightness can save precious battery power. And by default your Steam Deck is set to use adaptive brightness so that it changes the brightness setting based on the ambient light that it detects. Let me show you how to change this. Okay, so if we press the Steam button here on the left hand side of the deck and go down to settings, and inside there you'll find display settings, and if we go over you can see you've got a brightness slider that you can turn up and down, and also this option here to enable adaptive brightness. So switch that off and maybe try a lower brightness setting on your deck. You can also quickly change the brightness in-game using the quick settings menu. Press the quick settings button, go to the settings icon, and you can see brightness is there at the top. And now let's talk about that other power draw source, the processor, or to be more accurate, the APU. This is a chip which contains the system processor and the graphics processor. The APU has to work harder and use more power the higher your graphics settings are. So try turning down the in-game settings to find a good balance between good graphics and performance. On a 7-inch screen you might be surprised at how much you can lower the settings before you start to notice. But we also have settings on the Steam Deck which can help with this. Let me show you. So again, if we press the quick settings button here on the right of the deck and then go down to what looks like the battery icon, this takes us into our performance settings. And you'll see one of the first things that we can do is apply a frame rate limit. And this stops the Steam Deck from rendering at frame rates above its display limitations. So the display can only handle 60 frames per second, so having the graphics chip render at higher than 60 frames per second is perhaps just wasting power. So you can change your frame rate limit to 30 frames per second or even 15 frames per second. And a low frame rate like that might actually work for a turn-based strategy game or a puzzle game. If you like playing real-time 3D games, you probably won't want to limit the frame rate quite as low as 30 frames per second. Now underneath the frame rate limit you'll find that we can also limit the refresh rate of the display. You can turn this down as low as 40 frames per second. Now you need to experiment with your games, but you might actually find that you don't really notice much difference at 40 frames per second versus 60 frames per second. So here's another area where you can perhaps save a bit of battery life. So another setting that you might consider using is half rate shading. By switching this on you can reduce graphics quality in order to save power. Next on the list we can see we have a thermal power limit. Again, switch it on and we can adjust the wattage that our APU is allowed. The APU is designed to run at 15 watts, so we can reduce that all the way down to just 3 watts if we want to. I don't think you're going to get much performance at 3 watts though. With settings like this, maybe try just reducing it by 1 watt at a time until you find that happy compromise for the games that you play. The next option on the list is the manual GPU clock control. If we switch this on, we can actually change the GPU clock frequency from its default of 1600 MHz. So you might again just try taking it down one step at a time and testing it with the games that you play to find that happy balance. So with a combination of those brightness settings, the performance settings that we just looked at, and your in-game graphics settings, you should be able to squeeze a bit more battery life out of your Steam Deck. Let me know in the comments if you found these tips useful or if there's anything else you'd like me to cover in a future quick tips video. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I'll see you again soon for some more geekery.